Hi everyone. Last time we have learned about photography, and today we will learn about the basic setting of videography that every videographer must know it. Today we will dive into the basic of videography using a mirrorless camera. Whether you are complete beginners or just curious about how to get started, this video is for you. Okay, first thing first, let's talk about the camera. A mirrorless camera is a great choice for beginner. It is compact, it is lightweight, and it produces a high quality image. You will get a very high quality footage from this mirrorless camera. Before you start shooting your first video, you must know the basic rule and setting of videography because it is quite different from photography. So today we will learn only the basic setting of videography. Let's break each of these settings step by step in detail so you can understand how they work and why they are important in creating a great video. And if you understand one camera settings, that means one brand camera settings, you will be able to do the same settings pretty quickly in other brand. Rules are same in every camera. Our first setting is resolution. Resolution refers to the number of pixels your camera record in your video. The more pixel, the sharper and more detail. And in today's standard resolution we have HD, that is 1080p. We have 4K, 6K, 8K. As a beginner we will try to focus on 1080p, which is HD, and 4K. So 1080p, this is the standard resolution for most of the video you'll find in YouTube because it is clean and clear, and moreover it doesn't take too much storage. Where on the other hand 4K, which is the 4 times resolutions of 1080p, which means 4K gives you incredible details in your footage. It is great if you want to future-proof your video. In 4K you can crop your video without losing the quality. You can crop it and you can put it in a 1080p timeline. But as a beginner, I suggest you to shoot in 1080p because it is easier to work and require less storage. But if your camera supports 4K, you can use it for an important project. Just remember that 4K files are massive and they need a high speed card, and moreover you will need a fast computer or a high-end computer to edit your 4K footage. As a beginner, you try to shoot in 1080p, and after you progress, then you can shoot in a 4K. Now we know the camera resolutions. That is HD, which is the most common, that is 1080p, and then 4K, which is very common these days, and then 6K and 8K, it goes on. That's the resolution. So as a beginner, try to shoot in 1080p or 4K. Our next is frame rate, FPS. I think you have heard the word FPS. How many FPS your camera shoots? Yeah, can you hear it? Yeah. But in videography that is different. So frame rate is the individual frame or image your camera capture in 1 second. In video we have 24 fps, 30, 60, 120. So we have a different fps in videography. So as a videographer, we have to know which frame rate we have to shoot in what kind of scenario. So let's learn about fps, frame per second. The cinema industry standard is 24 fps. Technically 23.976 fps. These odd numbers come from a technically broadcasting standard, but in simple we round up this number. 23.976 is commonly known as a 24 fps, and so on. 29.97 is 30 fps, 59.94 is 60 fps. These days our mirrorless camera can capture 24 fps, 30 fps, up to 60 fps, and in some mid-range you will find up to 120 fps, and of course in some you will find a dedicated slow motion. There are so many frame rate. So in which frame rate should we shoot? To know this, we have to understand that there is a recording frame rate and playback frame rate. Recording frame rate is what you set in your camera. Before you shoot 24, 60, 120, what you set in your camera, that is the recording frame rate. Playback frame rate is what you set in your timeline while editing your video in your editing software. And this frame rate should match most of the time because it will play in the original speed. What you capture, it will play on that speed if it match. But if your frame rate does not match, then the playback of your video will not be in a normal. Your video might not look smooth because of the different frame rate, because you capture in one frame rate and then the playback in other frame rate. If you want a slow motion in your video, you must shoot in a higher frame rate than your editing timeline. If you shoot in 60 or 120 fps, then you can slow down 60 fps to 40% slow motion in 24 fps timeline and 120 fps to 20% slow motion in 24 fps timeline. Here we will not go in details. If you want me to make a video on how different frame rate affect the playback in your video, please do write it on comment so that I can make a video for you. Always shoot in 24 fps for a normal speed. Like now I'm talking in front of the camera, I'm shooting in a 24 fps. And if you want some slow motion shot, then shoot in a higher fps. If you have a 60 fps, shoot in a 60 fps. So if you want a cinematic look, shoot in 24 fps, and when you want to slow down, use 60 or 120 fps. If you want your looks to be like a TV news, you shoot in a 30 fps and edit in a 30 fps timeline. And if you like shooting a sports, then shoot in a higher frame rate, 60 fps. If you are shooting a sports in a 24 fps, then you will have a lots of motion blur. So you shoot in a 60 fps and edit in 60 fps timeline. We will learn more about fps in details in the next lesson. But here as a beginner, just remember that for a cinematic looks, shoot in a 24 fps, and if you want slow motion, 60 or 120 fps, and for a broadcasting like news broadcast, you shoot in a 30 fps and edit in a 30 fps timeline. For sports, shoot in a 60 fps and edit in a 60 fps timeline. That's it. Now our next is shutter speed. In videography, shutter speed is mostly responsible for motion blur, and shutter speed has a relation with frame rate. Shutter speed and frame rate, they are interconnected in videography. And unlike in photography, in video there is a cinema standard, and it is called 180-degree shutter rule. I think you have heard this word. This rule makes the motion blur in your video the most realistic to the human eye. To perform the 180-degree rule, it's quite simple. Just adjust your shutter speed to be the double of your captured frame rate. If you are capturing in 24 fps, then your shutter speed should be at 24, double is 48, so 1 over 48. But most of the normal camera doesn't have the specific number, shutter speed number, like 1 over 48 per second. So you will not find 1 over 48 second. So instead of that, you have to round up to the nearest one. That is 1 over 48 is 1 over 50. 60 fps is 60 double is 120. So 1 over 128 per second. 120 fps is 120 double is 240. So 1 over 248 per second. So stick to these rules in the beginning. And once you get better over the time, you can break this rule for some creative shots. Now let's have a coffee. Now next one is very important, that is exposure. Exposing the video correctly is very important, as it can change the look of your video. So how to expose? There are two ways. One automatic and other is manual. Automatic means you know it very well. Automatic means everything is done by your camera. Your exposure will control by your camera. You cannot control anything. And automatic is very bad for videography. In videography, automatic is very bad because we are not taking one frame, because we are taking a many frame in 1 second. So in automatic, the exposure may change. When you are shooting, the exposure may change because of the different kind of light. In shade, when you are aiming in the shade, exposure will change, and slowly when you turn to the light, the exposure will change. So that means in automatic, the exposure change all the time. That means in one footage you can find out 2-3 exposure, which is not professional, and you will lose every control. How you want your looks of your video, you cannot control it in your automatic. So I suggest from the beginning you should try to shoot in manual. How to put in the manual? Here's the M button. This is M. M stands for manual. So set your camera to manual. In manual, we try to control 3 things, that is aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. So if you want to learn more about exposure triangle or how to shoot in manual, then you check my video. Somewhere here or here, maybe here or here. Check it, or if you cannot find, you can look in the description below. I'll give a link in the description below. You check it out. To expose properly and to follow all the rules, this lead to the problem of videography. We usually want in our video to have a blurry background and want a natural motion blur at the same time. So to do so, we need to keep our shutter speed slow and our aperture wide open. What happens is that our shot is totally overexposed because we are locked in a shutter speed. We cannot play with our shutter speed because we want a natural motion blur. So we have to follow 180-degree shutter rule. And for aperture, we need a shallow depth of field, so we need to keep our aperture wide open. Now what to do? We don't have any other option. Here we cannot do anything. We already set the best setting in our camera. Now we cannot do anything, but our footage is overexposed. The only way to solve this is to get a ND filter, natural density filter. So what does ND filter do? ND filter acts as a sunglass to your camera lens, darkening the exposure so you can keep your shutter and aperture as low as possible. At the same time, your exposure is well exposed. You can maintain your exposure using your ND filter. Using the ND filter, you can expose it well using the external piece of ND filter. So there are different kind of ND filter. VND filter means variable natural density filter, which you can use by rotating. So whether you are a beginner videographer or thinking to get into this videography, the first thing you must invest in ND filter. ND filter is must to have. And while purchasing the ND filter, please do not purchase the cheap one. Go for a mid-range or a high range. I'll put some link of ND filter which are good for price as well as a high-end. I'll put some link in my description. You can check out. And if you buy from a link, then I'll get a small commission. Okay, next one is a picture profile. We will not go in the deep because picture profile, there's a lots of picture profile, so we will not go in the deep. Just a basic. As a beginner, you shoot in a standard picture profile. If you want to put some LUTs, play with some color, then you can shoot in a neutral picture profile. So if you want to play with some colors, a little bit, little colors, then shoot in a neutral picture profile. Just forget about log log, like C log, S log. There are different kind of log. So when you progress as a filmmaker and want to color grade of your own, then in that case you can shoot in a log, which is very advanced. Before shooting log, you have to learn about the log. So we are completely beginners here, so we will forget about the log. Just shoot in standard picture profile or neutral picture profile. Now the most important, the basic settings we have learned it. So what is the difference between photography and videography? In photography, you just point and click one frame, still. But in video, you want your subject or you want your camera to move so that you can follow your subject. In videography, movement of camera is very important, and we have camera movement pattern. We have a different kind of camera movement. Some basics are like panning. Panning is moving from left to right or right to left. We have a tilt. It's same as pan but from up to down or down to up. We have push in and we have pull out. Tracking shot, we have dolly shot, we have zoom shot, we have follow shot. There are so many shots in video that you will get lost in it. There are so many things to learn, like lighting, storyboarding, post-production, like editing. The list goes on and on and on. But we are in the absolute basic of video. We are just learning the basic of videography. That is also a basic settings, which you must learn it while shooting the video. But I hope this video helped you to understand the basic knowledge and introduction of videography. Okay, happy shooting. Wait. Did you hit the like and subscribe button? No? Hit it now.